And welcome back to Eldorado Park. Now, coming to you this morning, literally from the scene of the crime where 16-year-old Nathaniel Julies was killed last week. And this unfortunate act has galvanized a community. And this morning we are paying homage not only to Nathaniel, but to others who have died at the hands of police, others who are still struggling for justice in this community. And basically just honing in and shining a spotlight on the plight of not just Eldorado Park, as we said from the onset, but so many other colored communities around South Africa. Eusebius Maki, political analyst, commentator and author, has been with us all morning. Eusebius, you've listened to the stories and what people are going through, what their lived experiences are, and there's no substitute for that.
No, there's not, Sakina. And these experiences need to be affirmed. They need to be held. They need to be broadcast, and they need to be written about. On a sort of lighter note, when someone referred to you as Karima a couple of times, of course it's an innocent error, but it's a beautiful little moment because it speaks to a representation problem. You've asked this morning the very difficult question: how do we turn tragedy into an opportunity to write a new script about colored communities? And there are many small but important practical things we should begin to think about in addition to problematizing the issues as we have done. One of the practical things we need to do is to really think long and hard about underrepresentation in the arts, in the media, the stories we tell. You know, we see so few colored people represented even in South African pop culture, in South African media, that it's not, usual for us to even distinguish two colored women on TV because there's two of you that are famous and big in the land. And so your names are the same, which is why I think it is so beautiful that one of the persons you're going to speak to from Eldos is a youngster that have written about the heroes of his own community.
Indeed, and that segues us very nicely to Siboniso. And Siboniso Nongenge, you came to Eldorado Park at the age of 2. Born in the Eastern Cape, but you wrote a beautiful book, as Eusebius says, about your Eldorado Park and the heroes from this community. Please tell us what inspired that first and foremost, and talk to us about those heroes.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and to the community. Basically, the book, I got an idea. It's been 2 years that I've been busy with the book that I've compiled for the past 2 years, basically celebrating my community icons, you understand, whereas I'm giving honor to them because I see that they're not getting the honor that they deserve outside, you understand. So I'm celebrating within my community and also showcasing that what great potential that lays within Eldorado Park. And it's so unfortunate that we have lost a future, or could have been a future game changer within Eldorado Park, and I still would like to give a contribution unto him as a game changer within Eldorado Park. And
I just loved your book. I loved your book because it was simple, it was easy to go through, but it hit the mark. It achieved what you set out to achieve, to highlight the game changers in this community. And you speak of the likes of, I think I recall Dylan Olifant.
Yes.
I recall Keanu Cupido because I know him. He plays for Cape Town City at the moment in the PSL. And I remember him because he grew up with my kids.
Yes.
So, and there are others, of course. You talk about the likes of Mark Haskins.
Yes.
But there are even those who are not in the book. So many more heroes that have come from these streets. But do you plan on writing a follow-up book and talking more about everyday game changers in the society?
Definitely. This is not the only book that I'm planning on writing. I'm planning on making it like our own Forbes. Our own Forbes from Eldorado Park, where we are celebrating our own people, our own community, where youngsters within the same streets, the same dusty streets that Keanu Cupido's walked, the same streets that Mark Haskins walked, can and feel and also see the opportunity to get to that list, you understand? It must be like a bull's eye, where people want to feature or be seen, to be showcased on an international platform. And also basically the book is to rewrite the Eldorado Park narrative in a sense of, in a positive manner, and because we've been stigmatized with all the norm that I don't want to speak about mostly, I'm just showcasing the positive side of Eldorado Park to the world.
I love it. And this is why I love speaking to young people. Young people just bring a different energy to everything. And if you can get to them, you know, your job is done. But then, of course, as we talk about the bright future that lays ahead for so many, unfortunately, a future has been snuffed out, and that of Nathaniel Julies. And his father, his biological father, has come through to join us here on this broadcast. Mr. Harris, my sincere condolences, heartfelt condolences to you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, South Africa. Good morning to all the community of Eldorado Park. I'm very happy to see all the community standing straight behind me, to back up me and stand fully with me. According to this incident of my child, my heart is breaking. My heart is in 10 pieces. I don't feel well for what did happen to my child, but what can we do? We leave it in the hands of the Almighty. That's all I can say. But for me, there's one thing that breaks my heart very deep. Every people say Mr. Clint Smith is the child's father. South Africa, that is not true. South Africa, listen to me. Nathaniel Julies, I'm the biological father of Nathaniel Julies since he was a baby. Nathaniel was on earth because of me, Mark Harris. His mother gave birth to him. The first step Nathaniel could have taken was to crawl on his ass before he could have find his feet to walk, people. I go all these years through in my marriage with Bridget Harris. I did never back down. I did never step down on my marriage. I did never step down on my children. I was always there for my children. No matter they were 6 or 7 or 8 of how much, I was there for them. I did never hide myself. I did never say Nathaniel is not my child. I did never say each and every one of my children is not my children. I did work for CSC for 18 years. And I did support my children to the fullest of my commitment and my ability. But today, I'm standing here, people doing things behind my back, people doing things around me. It seems I'm not existing. I keep myself innocent, I keep myself quiet because I want to respect my child's funeral to the biggest dignity and respect. I want my child to go and rest in peace. I don't want a scandal on my child's funeral because that is not how I was brought up. I was not brought up in that manner. No. So South Africa, listen to me. The community, I thank the community of Eldorado Park. I thank you, all the people around the global. I thank you for your support in this crisis of my child. I thank you. America, I thank you for your condolences. I thank you for your support. I thank you. I have your back. I love it. And I thank you. May God be with all you people and bless you in your hearts for what you've done for me, my wife, and my children. But I can stand and see why SABC do such thing like that. But I'm not going to fight fire with fire. It's not my place. It's not my stand to take. Let the Almighty work with them. Let them do their job as they used to, as SABC, and come forward with the people who do this. And I hope everything is successful. Thank you, Lord. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mark Harris. And I think, again, this is about, as I've been saying all morning, giving a voice to this community, anybody and everybody in this community, so people are heard. Because one of the issues that have been pointed out in this community, and one that reverberates through every other community, is that people are invisible and they are not heard. And Mr. Mark Harris, and I think this epitomizes what SABC News is about. Independent, impartial. It was not our choice, but he has the right to speak and say what is on his mind. And Eusebius Maki, you know, this speaks to, again, one of the many issues in our societies, broken homes. And for people to come on national television and unburden about such very deep-seated hurt and pain, it breaks my heart.
Absolutely. My deepest sympathy to you. And thank you for telling your story and sharing it with us. Absolutely. You know, there's so many more issues, Sakina, that I know are close to your heart, close to mine. As human beings, firstly, before we even talk about social and political identities, just as human beings. And those additional issues are issues we need to lift to the surface, and we'll come to them the weeks, the months, the years ahead, because you and I are committed to telling the layers and the layers that are running deep in the voice of a father that has lost his son. There's parenting issues that we need to talk about. There is masculinity issues in our communities, in the colored communities, that we have to speak about. There are abandonment issues. I mean, the multiple ways in which I'm triggered just standing here, being in the community this morning is numerous. I mean, you as well. You and I are good friends, not just peers. And the way you're keeping yourself together emotionally for the sake of excellent technical broadcasting is a mark of your brilliance as a public broadcaster. But the reality is that there are deep layers in our communities that are not unconnected with the historical issues that we talked about earlier, and we need to talk about that. And that's apart from a self-standing issue we haven't even touched on that this father has spoken to, which is the institutional problems with policing in our communities. The police do not do justice by our community members. You heard the mom speaking earlier about her son being riddled with holes. That shouldn't be the case. Coming outside, looking for the blood, and finding that there is sand that is covering up key evidence. That tells you that the South African police service is not a police service. It is still a police force from the apartheid era, and the change in name has not translated into a change in behavior.
What we can't get away from is, of course, the class issues as well. Because this would not happen on a crime scene of a rich South African. It would not happen.
That is critically important. We don't only have racial problems in South Africa, we have class problems, and the relationship between the two are complicated. We don't have many, I can hardly think of any, middle-class colored communities, but I am far more likely to get justice than this father because I have multiple degrees, I've got money, I've got social and political power as someone who's prominent. You are from the community, but you're a middle-class member of the community. If this happened to your family, you stand a better chance, Sakina, as a middle-class colored woman of some form of justice. So these issues are racial issues, but they are also fundamentally class issues. What this community is experiencing is the violence of how people under conditions of poverty are treated in our country, regardless of skin color.
So how do we move forward as we move towards closing this broadcast in terms of ensuring that the discourse about colored people and their lived realities is part of mainstream conversation and not something that we come to once in a while when there is a flashpoint like happened here last week?
There are way too many things that we can and should do to mention today, but I want to highlight just two things we can do on a practical level. The first is almost negative advice, and the second is more practical. Firstly, we should not become cynical, and we should not let the politicians, corporations, people with power, people who run our police services, police stations, they should not be allowed to get away with being useless. And when people let you down in positions of power, Sakina, it's very easy to say, ag, ek gaan nie eens vote nie, my vote maak nie 'n verskil nie. So once you become cynical, you give power to the corrupt. Many of our leaders who let us down like it when we become cynical. Do not become cynical, because cynicism only benefits the useless people in power. The second thing is more positive, and it's something I learned from the real Karima. with her activism in the 80s before she became into journalism. Organize, organize, organize. When the community is marching, when a civil society organization says we need your bodies on the front line, we're going to Lutuli House, we're going to the union buildings, don't sit at home. It is very important that we think back to the 1980s when we had rent boycotts, all sorts of boycotts, and we go back and we use our memory of what we did against apartheid and the same skill set to organize, organize, organize against what we don't like in our democracy.
Indeed, and perhaps it would be fitting to give the final word to the community, because this was, after all, about giving a voice to the community. And perhaps in parting, ma'am, would you like to come and have the final word on this broadcast from Eldorado Park?
Yes. Good morning, South Africa. Morning, Sakina. Thank you, sir, for giving me the opportunity. The final say is here, what I just want to correct in Eldorado Park, that the stepfather and the biological father must work together. They must not be separated. The community that did not want the biological father to be here, I say they must repent. You can't, they are still legally married, and according to law, there is no way that it's all about the child. It is not about Yvonne or who. But what I want to say to the community, thank you for what you are doing. Thank you for those who came up. Thank you for every pastors and churches and organizations, people that contributed towards Bridget. What has been happening? People, what is happening here? I stand for against corruption. The truth shall set you free. Corruption is not in my line. Corruption, I serve the Lord. I do serve the Lord. I do serve the Lord. Bridget, I do know you. You've been serving the Lord with me. She doesn't. Bridget has got a problem, which I asked the organizations to help her. But
Bridget
thank you.
Is a mother in grief. She's in mourning right
Yes.
now. And I think we need to afford her that respect. And I
But
think
the father-
your point is made. The father, equally, we recognize his grief as well. But as you can see, South Africa, the emotions are running high. It is really a very, very difficult moment, not just for the family, but for the community as well. And thanks for watching this morning. Thanks for rallying behind this community. From Eldorado Park, hopefully we've shone a light on what is actually going on in this community. From me, that's it from Morning Live. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, all right. So that's